Keeping the cultura roots amongst the American hegemony of today. Our people have had to mimic and copy as a tactic to survive. Our lineage has always been hard to see for American eyes, but easy to find. We are here to deliver hope, resources, and the message. Bridging the gap from our bloodlines to today. Yo soy Joaquin.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the Yo Soy Joaquin podcast, episode 3. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Yo Soy Joaquin podcast. We have a very special night tonight where we are going to be talking about one of the main members of our group, one of the main Chicanos, El Mero Mero, Mr. Fernando Romero. Dr. Quintana, if you could please take things and start it off.
Welcome, everyone, to Yo Soy Joaquin. I recommend everybody to listen to that poem by Jorge Gonzalez if you have an opportunity. That's something that we all cherish here, and we go by to go back into history during the beginning of the Chicano movement. And today's a special day, a special evening. We have Senor Fernando Romero. He's going to tell us a little bit about his story and his life. We're going to be asking him some questions and getting a perspective. What was it like for him when he arrived here in Las Vegas, Nevada? And that's something that a lot of people should learn. And I think I'm very grateful, Senor Romero, to have you and have you with us here with Yo Soy Joaquin, and you know how important that is for us. Just beginning the process, also just a quick thing also with Serafin Calvo. He wasn't able to be here tonight. He's another carnal here with us. He celebrating his anniversary. So he did send me some questions for you, you know, that I'll be asking you as well from Serafin Calvo.
I'm all set. Yeah.
And Racet, did you want to start off with something that you've been thinking about all day, and Senor Romero?
Yeah, before that, I want to give Serafin a happy anniversary. I know it's his anniversario today, so happy anniversary to him and to his wife, and that's awesome. Hopefully they're having a great time. And Fernando, pues I've known you since I want to say it's 2016, and I started going to the hip breakfasts. I know you're El Mero Mero. I know that, you know, you hold it down for a lot of us here in Nevada, and there's not that many leaders like you. I look up to you, mis respetos, and before we start where we're at now, I do want to ask you, how was your childhood like? ¿Cómo eras de niño? What was the challenges? ¿Eras travieso? ¿Eras desmadroso? ¿Eras calmado?
No, I was a very good student, not an A student, but a very good student. Pero yo, you know, as a child, as a young man growing up like in elementary school, I learned a lot from what was going on. And that's why I love Jorge Gonzalez and Yo Soy Joaquin, because it reflects a lot of my life. We were like 50% Chicano, 50% Anglo, Güero. It was a good childhood, a good school, but there was a lot of racism, particularly in the part of the teachers. And it was particularly, I remember in the 7th grade, I was running for student council president. So I remember at the end of a school day, I'm walking down the hallway, and one of my professors, there were 3 really racist professors, and one of them calls me into his classroom. You know, nobody was there. And he said, I want to talk to you about the student council race. He says, as you know, I'm in charge, and I did all the counting. I said, okay. And he said, I want you to know 2 things. Number 1, you got the most votes. And I said, great. That means I'm student body president. He said, no, I'm going to give it to John Green. He said, I said, why? If I want. He said, because you hang around with too many Chicanos. And I said, well, I am Chicano. I said, that's another reason. He said, I'm not going to give it to you. And he said, no matter what you say, I'll deny, and I'll say that John was the vote getter. And that was that. I mean, it really hit me cold. But again, at the same time, you're going to school, they don't let you speak Spanish.
I heard that the other day. You told me because they would get mad if they wouldn't just let you
They
at all.
did not let you speak Spanish. We were about maybe 400 kids in the school. There were no Latino teachers at all, nothing, and they would not let us speak Spanish. That's why people like my age, our kids who are now like in their 40s and that, they don't speak Spanish, and if they do, they speak it very brokenly, mainly because we were very reticent, very reluctant to teach our kids Spanish because of the way we were treated for having an accent. Forget about speaking the language, for having an accent.
So what would have happened if your teacher would hear you talking Spanish to another Chicano? What
we were hit
how
with
were you
ruler.
disciplined? Like,
They would hit,
te pegaban?
no, nos golpeaban con una regla. You know, so yeah, it was pretty bad. I remember my cousin, God rest her soul, she was the same age as I am, and very Chicana, you know, and they caught her speaking Spanish. Mr. Davis did, in fact, the guy that I was talking to you about. And he asked her to put her hand out, and she did, and he kept hitting her, and her hand kept swelling, and she was too proud to say stop, because he would tell you, tell me stop anytime you want, and he would raise the ruler up, and people like myself, a real funny guy, I would say stop, so he wouldn't hit me. But he started hitting my cousin, and so he stopped because she started fainting, you know. But you go home to mom and pop, and you know the teachers are always right, you know, that kind of thing. But that's when I learned it. And then in high school, I was the president of the band. I was first chair in the Old City band, El Paso Old City, first chair every year, 4 years in a row. And when it came down to giving up the prize in my high school, again, mind you, I was the president of the band for 2 years straight. They gave the Who's Who award to a majorette, you know, and that really, I mean, that was el colmo, you know, that was it. So anyway, long story short, I transferred from University of Texas, El Paso to, well, even before, let's say in college, as you may recall, if you're particularly now with March Madness, Texas Western College won the national championship for March Madness. But when the band traveled to Kentucky, you know, I was the first chair saxophonist, and he said my professors called me and said we're going to take, and I can't remember her name, but somebody else, una güera. And I said, well, I'm the saxophonist. He says, yeah, but the college president said we were taking too many males, so we need to have some females in there too. And I said, she plays the bassoon, Mr. Hilliard. And he said, well, yeah, but she can also play the saxophone. So I missed out on going to see our team win the national championship.
Somebody took your spot.
Took your moment.
Because, yeah.
Your moment.
So it was you know, it was a teaching, a moment where, or my life, actually my young life, to learn to take care of my own. Cuando llegué aquí, when here at the Nevada Southern University, which still had not been called University of Nevada, Las Vegas, I was the first chair saxophonist for the jazz band and the orchestra, and it was okay, but I noticed that there were no Latinos in the whole university, and you know, so I formed the organization, the student organization of Latinos, so that we, the very few Latinos that were there, would go to the high schools to recruit students, because at the time, let's face it, if you told one of those students in high school, you know, we want you to go to college, they would laugh at you. They'd say, I don't see myself in college. And so, you know, we had a hard time, but nonetheless, we did improve the enrollment there at UNLV. But when I graduated in 1970, out of 450 graduates, there were only 8 of us who had a Latino surname.
So it was like a rare breed to have higher learnings in the Latino community. It was something just even unheard of. So
No, it was almost a joke, frankly, to be honest with you. So I went out into the community to seek help from the adults. You know, mind you, I was only 20 years old at the time, 21 years old, and I ran into the Círculo Cubano, and that's when I met all the Cuban leadership, including Otto Mérida, Well, in fact, Otto had not arrived yet. But it was Arturo Cambeiro and Fernando Perez and a few other people like that had the Cuban Circle. And they were the ones that started the Latin Chamber of Commerce, actually. And they also are the ones that pointed me to an organization that was just starting out. Se llamaba the Navarra Association of Latin Americans. And NALA was a really powerful, or it grew into a powerful organization speaking for everybody of the Latinos, on behalf of Latinos, getting people started. We had a contract with the Department of Labor to work with the employment office so that we could go and recruit individuals for positions that were open. It wasn't easy because not if we found people who were qualified for a certain job, they wouldn't hire them because of the discrimination that was going on.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of retrospect, right, in your life when you start, connecting the dots, and that's important. Just listen to your story, these things that happen, and I will share mine later too. And like I said, being myself part of Sol, looking for that opportunity, going to community college here in Vegas, and basically trying to figure out how to incorporate, being Mexicano and understanding my history. But, the question I would like to ask you, and this is coming from Serafin, like when you go back to your youth, say, when you're young, you're hanging out with your parents, what drove you back then? What gives you that drive? What do you think that drove you as a child to where you're at today? What's the correlation? What's the relation between you growing up and having this experience and realizing I'm a leader? And people obviously try to stop that process, but you had to live through that process to share that with us, because we're basically benefiting, me and him and all the young Latinos out there, Mexicanos, are benefiting from your experiences of being told that you can't go to university, or you can't play even though or you can't run for student council president, or you did win and they took it away from you. So what is it that, what kind of wisdom would you give us today in regards to that history and where we're at today?
I don't know if it's wisdom or not, but it is past experiences that I suffered. I just didn't want other people and other students, other young people to go through the same things I went through. My brother, for example, my older brother, God rest his soul. Anyway, he was 8 years old. He was a great musician. He was the first year clarinetist in his high school band. At 8 years old, they would pick him up from the elementary school, take him to the concerts and everything else, etc. He too was denied the award for the Musician of the Year in his high school. My brother, and the reason I am in Las Vegas is because he started joining various orchestras like the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra, the Charlie Barnett Orchestra, and all those. And then he wound up here at the Sands Hotel at the showroom as a musician. He was like 18 or 19 years old. He was a great musician. And then in more or less 1959, we came here to live in Las Vegas. In fact, I attended John C. Fremont Elementary. 2 years later, he was converted to a junior high school. But, they would take me around, believe it or not, from classroom to classroom and count 1 to 10 in Spanish, because I was the only Latino in the entire school, in those years. We moved back to El Paso, by the way, because my father got a job offer. But I fell in love with Las Vegas. I mean, the lights. I feel very privileged in the fact that I grew up with this city, with this town into a city, a cow town, as they call them, to a metropolitan city. And I feel very proud of myself for getting so involved with the community. And that's perhaps my problem. When I graduated with a music education degree, not only did I never teach music or any other subject, I gave away or sold my instruments because I dedicated, and I have dedicated all my life to improving the well-being of our gente here in Las Vegas. The discrimination in Las Vegas was just rampant. It was incredible.
How would you compare Las Vegas back then in the 70s and your college years compared to now? Did it have more of a, how can I explain it, more of a community, more tighter bond, service, casinos, the party scene? the barrios compared to now?
Dude, thank you for that question, because I feel proud of myself, although, I obviously kind of keep it to myself. Each student graduating to now, UNLV being a HSI institution, or Hispanic Serving Institution, to the point that today, President Trump has asked the Department of Education and the DOJ to investigate, quote unquote, investigate UNLV for having too much dedication to the DEI. And so, in a way, I have to feel proud that even though, that I rolled up my sleeves to help the institution get to the point that it is now. The problem, again, unfortunately, is that we have a president that does not care for that. A president of the United States of America working against that. Pero it really has helped all throughout, including the community college. Because I started helping Dr. Stephen Nicholson, who was the first president of the Clark County Community College, it was called. It was on the 700 block of Main Street, and it was just a building with 2 floors, and that's it. Probably maybe 10 classes that were offered, 10 subjects, and it grew to what community college is now with, 5 campuses and growing, and also an HSI institution. Again, I'm not the one that went out there to recruit all those students, but my grain of sand is there someplace along the way.
Serafin wanted me to ask you what keeps you in the game after so many years.
What?
What keeps you in the game after so many years?
That we're still not there. We're still not there. We had so many problems in getting, our kids are still not graduating at the rate that we want them to. They're not being taught as well as they should be. The principals of high schools and middle schools and elementary schools, the Latinos principals are not there. We have a total of 5 principals in the entire school district. We have 340 schools in Clark County, y 5 principals that are Latino. We have 48, almost 50% Latino enrollment in the Clark County School District. And when you compare that enrollment for 330,000 students, 50% of them Latinos, and then 5 principals, you know that you have not reached the level that you want to. That's what keeps me going, and has kept me going. And I think I started off in education or fighting for education since I was 19 years old. I'm 78 years old now. We're still not where we should be, where we could be, and the struggle is continues. And our people have got to realize that education is the name of the game. Whether you turn out to be a doctor, a lawyer, a carpenter, a plumber, the fact is we need that education. You cannot join, for example, and I'll bring the unions up. Mm-hmm. If you want to get into one of their internship programs, called apprenticeship programs, you still have to have a high school diploma. And it is very difficult to do that. I belong to 3 school organizational teams. Rancho High School, East Career Technical Center, and Global High School. Of the 3 schools, Global High School is the one that really has my heart entirely, because it is 100% immigrant population, and they're turning out a lot of kids that are interested.
Okay, it looks like we're going to stop our live right now. Before we go out, I want to give a shout out to all the Union Raza out there, to all the locals, to all the followers, to todo el mundo que nos está apoyando. Que Dios me los bendiga. Before we go out, is there any shout outs, Rob? I didn't see you too many. I was in the conversation that you might want to give shout outs to. And also, this podcast is going to be on YouTube, I believe, on Friday or Saturday. So check out the full podcast. We will continue. We're just saying bye to the live. And I see Brad's Dope.
Username Brad's Dope says, that's my father on the front page of that book in the tango hat. Handshake emoji, check mark emoji. Brad's dope. Thank you for commenting. And then also Magnus_10. Arriba El Tusi with 3 flowers. Okay. And then also right here, Why Me 8 Local 1091 shout out. Boom.
Nice. Shout out to them. And I'm not sure about the front page of the book. Do you know what book he's talking about?
I'm not sure about that book either. Yeah. I believe it's a Yo Soy Joaquin book that they're referencing.
Orale.
And then one more here, Casper Tattoo Ink, Mexican flags, a lot of emojis of Mexican flags. Thank you for commenting. And yep, it says right here, Brad's dope. That's my father on the front cover of that Yo Soy Joaquin book. Okay.
Orale. Well, thanks a lot. Blessings.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back to the Yo Soy Joaquin podcast, second part. We're continuing our in-depth discussion of one of our members, Mr. Fernando Romero. Please, Dr. Quintana, if you could pick up with the discussion.
Well, I just want to say thank you once again for those who were listening live. We got a brief synopsis of some of the beautiful experiences, but challenging. I think the fact that you were a musician and your brother's history as well, I think that just proved to me that you know how to play music and you know how to synchronize things in life properly. And that's important, you know, because Vegas is very historical, but there's little history of us in Las Vegas. And I have 2 more questions or 3 more questions from Serafin. And this one, he wanted me to ask you, what else do you have to accomplish that you haven't done already? What else is that you want to accomplish?
Well, my God. Well, first of all, let me say that I think I've accomplished a lot. I was the first Chicano Latino to be a member of the governor's cabinet. I was appointed in 98 by Mayor Jones at the time, Liberty Jones, to be on a 7-member committee that developed and established and looked into creating Ward 5 and Ward 6 for the city of Las Vegas. In 1975, I was honored to be named as one of 12 outstanding, if you will, not my word, the newspaper's word, individuals in Las Vegas. And that included, by the way, a young man by the name of Harry Reid, a young man by the name of Steve Wynn, Peter Simon. I don't know if you've heard of Peter, kind of petered away, if you will, but he was the founder, in essence, of Gene, Nevada, of those hotels and casinos in Gene, Nevada. Trader Joe's, he started out there in Gene, Nevada. And there's something. I was the first individual to own a freestanding Latin record shop, if you will. Again, to serve for a United States Senator, to serve as director of 2, not 1, but 2 state offices, the Nevada Equal Rights Commission and the Equal Employment Opportunity Office. So, you know, there's much more that needs to be done. I was the first chairman of the bilingual education for Clark County School District. That was back in 1980. And I still continue, again, fighting for the betterment of the education for our children. So that would be, and hopefully I don't pass away from old age, you know, before we completely become equal as far as the opportunities that education has to offer. But I'm glad to see, for example, that the school board, after so many years, is finally putting Latinos on the board now, and to see Brenda Zamora as a voting member, and Irene Bustamante as a voting member. There's Isaac Barron and Ramon Esparza, and again, it feels so good to see that coming, but we still have a long way to go, and I will continue participating and involving myself in education to the point, unfortunately, because education and social work and public work and is very demanding. And so I've been president of Hispanics in Politics for about like 18 years, give a year on and off. The organization has existed for 45 years. And we've done the forums that you guys have attended. Thank you. For the past 30 years, bringing information to our community. Once a month, we have these forums, as you know. And it really makes my month, if you will, when I see people coming to this forum still. We have helped many people who have become politicians serve in their posts. Steve Wolfson is an example. Michael Douglas, Supreme Court Justice. Michael Cherry, Supreme Court Justice. Nancy Alf, Supreme Court Justice. There are so many people that we have given a hand to, including, by the way, Richard Bryan, who we assisted back in the 90s, early 90s, to become a senator, a state senator. We helped Harry Reid, going back to the young man, become a lieutenant governor. We all had a hand in that, in helping them out.
What do you look for on a candidate to be endorsed by? What other than attending and with their message? What do you look for that endorsement where you put that hip that hip endorsement
seal? Yeah.
That seal?
Well, first of all, when they attend, that means that they're interested in the forums that put on. So that in and of
itself number one
helps out. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not necessarily number one because it's what they stand for, right. And as an example, there are two good members of HIP that we did not endorse because they are not for public education. Okay. And we are 100% for public education because that's what's going to get our kids educated. It's not the charter schools, it's not the private schools, definitely. It's the public schools that give the teachers the impetus to go forward in teaching our kids, that develop the various types of programs that exist for English learners program, or the food programs that some of our kids need. Because as we know, at times, some of these kids, the only food they get is the one they get at school. So we need public education to support us in every aspect of things. And so again, although being a member and participating in those forums is a step in the right direction, it is not the step. Because again, if you are against something that is so vital to our community, we cannot endorse you, and you shouldn't receive that endorsement.
Then go back in history, like you growing up where there wasn't a lot of education. When you have first generation Mexicanos or Latinos that come out, they come to the United States, and you're first born in the United States. Do you think the parents are, comparatively to back then, are speaking more about education and to pursue those opportunities based on the ability to be able to speak out more than versus, in your days, like you said, when you were young, they wouldn't allow you to, to progress, and when you wanted to be the leader in certain clubs or organizations. One thing I found out being here, and I'm first generation and working in casinos, I worked my way through the process, but not every kid is resilient, and some kids sometimes see their parents who work in construction or work in the casinos. They see all what the parents have. We both have children, and they see like the success that we have, and sometimes they say, I could just do that. And being in Las Vegas, I hear from kids they don't want to go to school because they could just go work and make $50,000, $60,000 a year. So how do we, as far as the general public, how do we get out there right now and tell these parents, hey, let's get these kids to a certain spot where they can, go get a 2-year degree or even go for 4 years. I'm always preaching higher education because I think it's important to have that toolbox, and that's what it does. It helps you bring out that toolbox to solve problems, right? It's always about solutions. So is there anything or advice that you could give the people today, parents today who are first, maybe second generation, padres y madres, to tell these kids, hey, you got to go get an education. It's not all about AI in a sense. It's not about just getting on TikTok. Is there anything that you would tell them now?
Well, it would be what I've been telling them always, is of the importance, stressing the importance of an education, because you mentioned, for example, construction. There's a lot of money to be made in construction. The thing is, as I mentioned before, that for the most part, you have to be a high school grad to get that construction job or that apprentice's job. You may be able to sneak out because tu primo got you a job, putting up a stop sign, and you make $18 an hour doing that, which is great. But not every job is there that's going to make that kind of money.
They make about 35 now, by the way.
Well, okay. And I'm talking back when, so forgive me for that. But it is one of those things that we need to put that as an impetus, as the carrot, so that they can go for it. And education is the name of the game. When you start saying that we wouldn't have an attorney, we wouldn't have a doctor, we wouldn't have all these individuals if we did not have an education. And we need to stress that fact. When I was going to school, the Gabachito had, their lawyer father, their mother who was a nurse, etc. We didn't have that, and that's what you want to stress here. When we first opened up Soul at the university, we had some very good people, very interested people, who kept going to the high schools to talk to people, and some of those individuals who belong to Soul are now in good positions where they can help out. Do they help out? I don't know, but we try to have them help out because, hey, you got help. You need to stretch out your hand to other people to give them a hand. Pero we need, the bottom line is education. I mean, there's many other things, but education is the bottom line. It is what's going to get you there. And then those of us who are so-called, community leaders, if you will, to open those doors for you as an educated individual to the university, as we have done at UNLV and throughout the country, because we have now Harvard and Yale and all those schools accepting bright individuals who want an education. In fact, Harvard now, as of this year, will be offering free tuition to individuals who demonstrate that they deserve that free tuition.
If the family makes under, a certain amount of money per year, they would offer that.
Well, and now you don't have to have that. You have to have community participation. You have to have the interest in your school and yourself. We it's not just the book learning. It's also the getting involved with social programs, with other programs, where people, not only do you get to meet people, you also get to open doors as a young person for others and for yourself. So, it takes, as Hillary Clinton used to say, it takes a village, because all of us have to be involved in helping our young people get the education that they deserve and that they should have, and making them realize that that's what's going to get them through life.
And going back to now that, this is a Yo Soy Joaquin podcast, Corky Gonzalez, when he developed his programs, that he was a well-read individual. Obviously, he enjoyed reading and understanding, poetry, writing. And what could you tell us about when he was establishing that as part of it? Because it seems like we're back to that again.
Well, Corky was 20 years older than I. But I got into his teachings, into his philosophy of Chicanoism, because his was just what you just mentioned, to helping individuals not only in theater, in painting, in the library, in reading, in schooling. And he was a major factor, I think, in the 70s because it created individuals such as myself. We had a program, a federal program called Manpower Assistance Program that was funded by the Department of Labor. I was lucky enough to be accepted. There were 41 Latinos that were accepted across the country, and I went there representing Nevada. This was in 1971, by the way. And we got to learn and meet and see all these things and be able to help others get to where they want to get. I worked in Atlanta, I worked in New York, I worked in Connecticut, Window Rock, Arizona, in LA, in San Francisco, because I was given that opportunity. Once you give that, somebody gives you the opportunity, you take it, and you do what you can to help others do the same. And sometimes, unfortunately, we get to where our goals wanted us to get, and that's it. We don't do anything else. But our thing now today is to convince others to help our young people. And that goes to Corky Gonzalez's philosophy.
Absolutely, because in healthcare for me, growing up, I always wanted to be a doctor, and I can tell you this right now, and being in the community on Bonanza and Eastern, the stories that come through and the amazing things that we can do as professionals, it's important to don't forget about where you come from, because in our communities we do have a Harvard or Yale, a Stanford individual who's just maybe sometimes doesn't have the opportunity to run into people like ourselves. But when they come into the office, and you see them and you see their eyes, the hope, and all they're doing is searching. Because I run into students who are straight A students, and they have to take care of their brothers and sisters in the evening because their mom has to work in the evening or a parent has to work. And then sometimes that takes away from their scholastics. So scholarship sometimes is not about a straight A. Sometimes it's just about that one individual can, if you can help them go to school or help them with something in their life that nobody else is paying attention to. Because for me, I like to reward people that, that nobody else sees. And that happens all the time, and that's something that we've been going through for many years. So it's important, what you said about Corky Gonzalez. And I think we all have his spirit, his type of, people in us. And Raciel is another individual. I've talked to him many times. Hey, can we do this? Yourself too. And Rob as well. He's been helping us with. That's why we formed this group with Serafin, because we want to contribute, we want to give, we want to, let the people know that we're here. But at the same time, we got to collaborate, And with that said, I have one more question here. What are you most proud of within our Las Vegas Latino community?
Well, the fact that we are getting to where we want to get, but the fact that that some of our students have made it. I am proud of Global High School, because if you go see that high school, you visit that high school, you see all this, in essence, that is like 95% Latino, striving and to get ahead. And you see them trying and helping each other out, and they do get ahead. And I've attended their graduations every year, except this year I wasn't able to make it. But you see and hear them, and you feel so proud that there are a group of individuals that are trying, and we have to do that. We have to, if anything, just talk to them. I haven't seen, for example, my niece. I haven't seen her in like 15 years, so I had nothing to do with her education. But she graduated 25 years ago from Harvard Medical. Nice. She is now the head of gastroenterology for the Mayo Clinic, Latina,
Nice.
And I have a nephew who graduated from Harvard Economics. Again, I had nothing to do with his actual education.
Sounds like it runs in the family, higher education.
Well, it runs in the family. I think the interest is what really runs in the family. The interest in education.
Who do you think brought that? ¿Quién les puso eso? Who was the example? Who were your parents like, hey, you have to get that diploma? They're the ones that who inspired you during your...
The way is, thank you for asking me that. My father only had a third grade education. When he became an adult, a young adult, he taught himself and then earned enough money to pay a professor, where he became the first chair violinist for the El Paso Symphony Orchestra. He could read, write, and speak English and Spanish, and again, mind you, I repeat, a third grade education. So he gave me that impetus, he gave me that. As I said, my older brother was a great musician. Played with, again, I just mentioned some of the orchestras that he played with, Maynard Ferguson, and the showrooms here in Las Vegas. You see and you say, I want to do that. It's not like they're sitting with you every day and right. going, but they give you that impetus. They give you that interest. He can make it, I can make it. My brother, as an example, he comes from the same father I did, so... Obviously, we have the same genes, we have the same interest. Y eso es lo que cuenta, that we have to interest our kids into improving themselves, into not giving up, into going forward. Jose Hernandez, who, by the way, was the first Chicano astronaut, he was born of migrant parents. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he studied on his own and everything else by candlelight and all that stuff, and he became the first Chicano astronaut. You know why? Because he had in his heart that if he tried hard, he would get there, and he did. And he had 5 failures. I don't know if you know this, but he had 5 until he himself said, "I'm going to go to Florida and present myself physically, personally, to the people that are in charge." And he did that. And so, you know, you look at people like that, and you say to yourselves, that's what we need to do, is to motivate our children. AOC, Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez, she was a bartender, as I'm sure you know. She was a waitress. Ella fue on her own, paid through school. I believe it was Boston College, got her degree, and now she's perhaps one of the most outspoken, one of the most influential, not only Latinos, but Democrats, if you will, in the country. And so it takes that. It takes simply el interés in yourself. And also as a community leader or as a professional, to give somebody that interest. And somebody's listening. Somebody will listen, and they'll get ahead. You know, and I think we're getting there.
If you were to go back to that 20-year-old Fernando, what advice would you give yourself?
You know, when I graduated from UNLV, I was recruited by Arizona State University to their legal program, and I had gone through 5 years of college, and I was tired. Estaba casado at the time.
¿Cansado o casado?
Casado.
¿O los dos?
Los dos.
Cansado,
Los dos.
casado.
And I said, you know, give me a year. The guy said, I know you won't be interested in a year because you're going to give up. And I did. I gave up as far as my personal going forward with it, which is why right now, if I see somebody with a talent, I will talk to that person and try to instill upon him or her to go ahead with the education. My wife is one of them. My wife came from Mexico 25 years ago. She graduated summa cum laude with her degree in education. And now, as we speak, she's attending UNLV to get her master's, porque ella sabe que she can go further with that education. And I am certainly trying to give her as much help as I possibly can. Yo soy el cocinero de la casa, you know,
Chef.
you know, because, hey, you know, I have to do my fair share for her to get ahead. And you have to have somebody who's interested in getting ahead, you know, and that's the whole thing. You have to be there. Not only her because she's my wife, but strangers that I don't know, but I see that motivation, and I try to, you know, push them to get all they can out of themselves or from themselves.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I definitely notice a lot of kids, you know, walk with their head down. You know, they put the hoodie on their head and they just keep kind of walking down. You're not even looking at the world. And, you know, for me, it's always important to, you know, in the office or in general, is to keep your head up, you know, because it's energy, it's body language, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's always important to keep those shoulders up. And I think when you look at those authentic Azteca images or artwork, you always see with the head up, you know, and we're so proud of who we are. And I think having that essence within ourselves, you know, and I'll think in the next question for you is like, given the situation we're in politically in this country, and why is it, what do you think is happening in regards to why do people feel so threatened, right? When it comes to politics of a group of people coming up, and how do we, you know, obviously Martin Luther King came along at a time where he was able to establish and touch the heart of man without social media to bring people together through the civil rights and also the Chicano movement. It seems like we have to go back to that again to let everybody know without, you know, obviously we have to kind of say, okay, this is wrong what you're doing, but you know what, come into the house right now. Let me give you some food real quick. Maybe that'll calm you down. Do we need to have that kind of rhetoric to control the narrative again, to show people that we are human beings? Because there seems like a lot of dehumanization prior to the election being over. And now we're in a situation right now where, you know, people are afraid to go to the store, or people are afraid to send both parents at the same time to a fiesta or an event. What do you think politically would help to collaborate and bring people together for the greater good?
We have a a national leader that is so negative and so negative with his message that he is affecting our children and us as a community. People don't go to the store as often as we can, because not only are they supposedly getting to the criminal element, they also are going to anybody who does not have a document. And even if they do, as you may have heard, last week, they deported a 10-year-old U.S. citizen girl who needed an operation, by the way. Y la deportaron.
Una niña de 10 años.
Yeah, 10 years old, U.S. citizen. And right now, as an example, they have in custody, without being charged, an individual. Now, I'm not talking about, I don't want to get involved in Hamas and all that, but the individual himself is a legal resident. And he's in jail right now with no charges against him. And they will not release him. And in fact, they're talking about deporting him. Now, just yesterday, the immigration czar, Tom Homan, gave a speech saying, I don't care who you are. If you're the mayor of a city or the governor of a state, I will deport you if you get in my way. Again, a mayor or a governor, I will deport you or I will arrest you if you get in my way. So if that doesn't scare the society, nothing will. You know, and so obviously, if you're here without the proper documentation, if this guy is threatening a governor or a mayor, I mean, you know what he's going to do to this guy, young man. And unfortunately, we have a Democratic delegation that voted for the Lake and Riley Act, which says that if you are charged, not found guilty, but charged of committing an act, a criminal act, whether it be shoplifting or stealing a car, and without the due process, they will deport you. Okay, so yeah, we all should be afraid. We all should have that thing. Pero a la vez, you know, we have to overcome that. That's why I'm so proud of the Mexican president, Clara Sheinbaum, because she is saying, hey, you know, if anything happens to you, we're here for you with our open arms, with educational programs, with housing programs, with employment programs, you know, and not that that's what we should go for. We should go for us here to help each other out and make it in this country. But again, knowing that perhaps there's a cushion there should anything bad happen.
Rob's telling me that we have 5 minutes left. Fernando, in these last 5 minutes, is there anything that you want to tell our community, this world? I know you've done a lot of things. You've done some amazing things. You're an amazing leader. You're an amazing human being. I know the fight is real, and we're here with you. ¿Es algo que quieres compartir?
Well, thank you for the accolades and for the opportunity. Yes, the only thing is that interest in our youth, because right now that's what we have. We have our youth that are there for us. Porque even though there are a great number of individuals who may be here without the proper documentation, there are many of us who do have that documentation and who are privileged to having access to a good education and also resources. And even though some of those resources are being taken away, you know, they are being supplemented by others. And really, we as adults, if you will, as community leaders, as I mentioned before, we need to continue with that interest, and we need to continue helping our young people out and our own community out, and informing each other and helping each other, teaching each other, educating each other, and just loving each other. That's it.
Well, I can say this: we're not just Taco Tuesday, you know. So I always talk about that because it's always find it interesting that you know, we make these holidays out of different cultures in this country, but the authenticity of being Mexicano, Chicano in this country, we never left. So obviously through the you know, like they say, the border, you know, crossed us historically. We do have European family members that came from Spain, maybe some France, maybe some German. My dad said in Sonora, he always had a pueblo next to him growing up. He would tell me about these German people he grew up around. It was all German. He grew up in a rancho in Sonora. So with that said, you know, I'm very grateful that, you know, you share these stories, because I think when people hear your story, I'm sure people, from the time you've been here and the time to today, a lot of people heard your story, but maybe these young people out there haven't heard it, and hear these stories of struggle, strife. They can look back on themselves. Sometimes people don't realize they've been discriminated until, someone brings it up and they're like, oh, wait a minute, I could have been a champion, or I was a champion, and then all of a sudden it was taken away from me. And that did happen. And in today's world, a lot of these young 20-something Latinos maybe need to start focusing and thinking about, their parents and the struggle they went through. And it starts with that. Telling your story is important because everybody has a story. And Raciel has a story. We talk a lot. And once again, thank you for sharing this. We're very proud of you.
Thank you.
And I appreciate what you've done for us.
I have one more thing. This is why we have this podcast. Yo soy Joaquin. Yo soy Joaquin. I just urge everybody who's listening to go and read that poem and see the video. It should really give you that is the thing in your heart to want to help. Yo soy Joaquin. Gracias.
Gracias, Fernando. Yo soy Joaquin.